Is it a do-or-die crossroads for DA heading into Week 9 against Carolina?
Yeah, I think that's the unforgivable loss. Like, I mean, I'm not saying 6 losses isn't unforgivable and 7 is, but Carolina's a disaster. The Saints are a disaster. Carolina is like a disaster beyond the Saints' disaster. And so that would be a humiliating loss, especially if Derek Carr comes back in it. All the guys that came back today, you're losing some of the excuses. But, as we said pregame, they still don't have Eric McCoy, Rashid Shaheed, or Paulson Adebo. So the question is, will the Saints not see why? I still think it would be pretty shocking to see DA get fired during the season. But a 7 straight loss, and that loss coming to the Carolina Panthers, would get me closer to believing it than ever before. I would clear out my calendar and be checking my phone and be making calls and checking with sources every 5 minutes, believing it's possible at that point, even though I would still bet against it.
Yeah. I bet against it. Like, really?
I don't think he would get fired in season. I think it'd be the death blow. But
I know that as well as you do, but that would be insane to me at that point. Like,
I agree, but again, if you're making that decision and you've got, a guy you respect's livelihood, career on the line, his family, all those things you take that you weigh on that decision, and you are Mickey Loomis, who we know is look beyond the results, he said very recently. I don't think he's looking at it as 6. I think he threw the last 3 out the window. I don't think he's looking at, but this was bad because they had some healthy players back. Next week would be epic disaster, and it becomes in play then. But, like I said, I think it becomes in play, and I think it becomes more likely to happen at the end of the season because this team is still set up to finish 4-4 or something like that. And if they can't do that this year, I think that would finally be the death blow. But I'm talking practically here, not trying to sell anybody.
Yeah, it's
on
interesting. It's interesting, and the thing you said that I think rings on that is that you said Mickey's in control of DA's livelihood. I can't think of another GM. I'm sitting here going through my head besides Jerry Jones, whose livelihood isn't tied to the coach, like together in a package. Like that's probably the difference in how to think about it.
Howie Roseman's got that kind of setup.
Howie Roseman's got a, there's. It's just different. It's different. It really is. Howie Roseman can get fired. Like, we don't know that Mickey can. Like, honestly, like in the same sense.
True. Mickey feels like ownership.
Yeah,
Mickey feels like
he's
ownership.
the one making that decision. I mean, I guess I didn't really calculate it that way. So you can sit there and let this go on, and you aren't necessarily like tied in with it because you're kind of a GM in title, but maybe not in actual practice. And the setup is different. But I just don't know. I don't know that you can do that and maintain good business. I don't know that you can lose 7 and have Atlanta come there. I mean, it really feels like to me that, like, you could be setting up, you can ride it out and everything, but there's also a risk of doing, like, harm that can't be repaired over the long term if you just let this keep going and going and going and going. You might really cause a revolt in your fans.
Well,
and I know it's kind of taken for granted. Well, you win and they come back. And, yeah, that's true. But, I mean, at the same time, they don't want to feel like the back's been turned on them. And I understand to this point, okay, you let it go. You let it go. You lost 6 in a row. You probably should have been expected to lose every single game without Derek. I mean, it's just kind of you got a 5th rounder in there starting. And, yeah, he's different than other 5th rounders, but he's a 5th rounder. The other guy on the team is a 4th rounder. Neither one of them are Jameis Winston. And, there was the decision not to have the $10 million backup. And I kind of don't super disagree with it, the whole time. Like, in the offseason, it was like, well, that's a place to save money. We want them to fix their cap. If the starting quarterback gets hurt, you're kind of screwed in those games. So, fine. Set them aside, whatever. I think there were bigger issues than just injuries in all these games. The defense didn't play good enough, all that. But whatever. If the GM wants to set all those aside. But if you get Derek Carr back on the field and you lose to Carolina, that doesn't feel okay to me at that point. It's all this stuff has happened, and now nothing can be ignored. You want to set that as the line, that's fine with me. But if you lose that game, I think your fan base, if you just sit there and say, we're going to wait and we're going to wait and we're going to wait, I think you're running real risk at some point of them feeling like, man, they don't care. Like, they don't care. Why do I care? And I think you have to protect against that. And if you have a scene of Atlanta takeover of Rise Up in your building, You cannot allow that to happen. You have to take action at some point.
You keep mentioning this Atlanta takeover. Do their fans actually travel?
I think if there's
feel like it might be more of an empty seat.
They are winning every game, and there's a chance to bury their biggest rival. I
They'll
think
show up for that one.
I think so. I would. Wouldn't you? Like, when have they been excited? They should be excited right now, and they got a chance to just bury the Saints. And the tickets might be like $20. Like, it really, like, if you lose at this Carolina game, like, it's fine. Empty building, even, that's even worse. That's even worse than that. Like, either way, there is a turn against, and either Atlanta capitalizes on it or it's an empty building. You just can't lose 7 in a row. And I just don't believe that Mickey would sit there and allow that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we need to see what it looks like. I mean, if they go into Carolina and play the same game they played today, it's so uninspiring. It's so hopeless. The weird thing is they showed some energy. Like, I don't feel like the Richard Sherman accusation of this looks like a team that quit. They're trying to get their coach fired. The defense played their asses off, energy-wise too. They gave up the 2 big plays, which I feel like, when is that going to happen? Spin the wheel. When are they giving up their 60-yard play every single week? But other than that, the defense played great. Alvin was running his butt off. There's just also, I'm not exonerating it. There's just plain a lack of talent on this team. I mean, that offense just plain isn't good enough. And I don't know how much of that Derek Carr can solve. I don't know how much of that Eric McCoy can solve. But, man, oh, man, 8 points felt like they maxed out today.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that was due to, quarterback play.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was due to quarterback play. Like, I think if you had a starting NFL quarterback, the way that first half went, you're probably in that game, and then the second half probably goes a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Like,
Derek Carr could have won this game today.
The wheels might have
I'm
came
not
off
ruling
on
it out
a little bit.
What was it? 6-5 for a lot. It was 9-5 at halftime. They were playing Dolly Parton.
I agree that they were playing hard. It looked like a hard-fought game. I thought the defense really actually did respond. Like, I thought they responded. They stopped the run, at least the running backs. I know Herbert got 50 yards and allowed them to get over to I don't know what it was, 152 yards overall or something. But I felt like they did a pretty good job against a team that really wants to run. I thought Herbert made 3 big plays that were the big difference in the game. The explosives are still a huge problem. There's still stuff on defense that has to get fixed. But from 1 week to the next, I do think that there was a material improvement. And I thought the offense played hard. Chris Olave was fighting for yards after the catch, harder than I've ever seen him go, in an effort to gain yards after the catch. Alvin had that run where it looked like, there wasn't anything bringing him down except, gravity itself. He was just fighting for yardage and got through it. So, I mean, I don't feel like it was a team that quit. I think it's a team that's extremely frustrated, though, but they aren't going to quit. That's just not in their DNA.
That would be another reason to fire DA, and we haven't seen that yet. If it was just openly, and we've talked to the players, and it got tenuous last year. It gets tenuous this year. I'm not saying they're totally bought in and saying, no, it's tepid, but it's – there hasn't been this, the smoking gun.
I think it's beyond tenuous. I don't think it's tenuous anymore. I think it's kind of more
But it hasn't become the Mickey Loomis can't ignore what these players are saying moment yet either.
Yeah, I think last year was more a why is this happening? We're pissed off, to where now it's well, this is happening again.
Yeah,
we have to figure this out somehow. It's just a different tone. It's frustrated, but it's an accepting of a reality. I don't know. It's just different. It's different. It's definitely different. Whereas last year it was people were talking with tears in their eyes and stuff, and it just isn't that this year. It's not the same exact thing that it was a year ago. But I mean, the reason to fire him is if you lose 7 games in a row, and the 7th game is the worst team in the league. That's the reason to fire him.